Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 20 City Council meeting for the City of Sioux Falls. Happy Thanksgiving week, everyone. Hope you all have a blessed holiday week this week. Clerk, let's go ahead and get the meeting started by reading the roll.
Council members Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Brecky.
Here.
Erickson.
All right, as we do with our meetings, we have a chance to start our meeting with invocation, and I'm honored to have Brenda Hill with us. Brenda is with the Direct Line Prayer Center, and Brenda is also, I asked her if I could tell this little tidbit. She's the wife of Don Hill, who's a longtime fire chief in the city of Sioux Falls. So she is not unfamiliar to city council meetings. So if you'd all rise for the invocation, Brenda will lead us in that, and please stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you have given us by your hand to this city. We acknowledge that you have given us so many gifts in our city that we've often taken most of them for granted. Today, at this very moment, we want to stop, pause, and reflect on all that we have, especially in comparison to the many places in the world that have so little. We thank you for good roads to travel on. We're often quick to get upset in our country if we have a few bumps in a road, or if we have to wait for road construction. But we often forget to be grateful that we have roads. Lord, forgive us, because we have such an abundance. You've blessed us with great schools in our community. You've blessed us with so much food to eat. We have clean water that we can turn on in our homes. We have heat. We have clothing. We have an excellent sanitation system. And you have provided transportation for us. You've given us parks to enjoy in our city, swimming pools and aquatic centers to have fun in, stadiums to enjoy events at, bike trail to explore, and many amazing facilities for us to use to conduct business or pleasure in. We have a beautiful city, a beautiful, clean city to live in. Lord, we thank you and we bless you for these gifts. We thank you for the blessing of our first responders, those who come at a moment's notice to help us when we're in danger or in need. They often put themselves in harm's way to care for all of us. Thank you, Father, for these men and women who serve our citizens in this way. Lord, I thank you for Mayor Tenhaken and the vision that you've given him for the future of our city. We pray for him and for each council member here. Please help them to filter each decision with thoughtful impact on future generations. Just as this council and this mayor come in the wake of past decisions that have been built upon, I ask that this leadership be clear on what it will hand down to the children, to the grandchildren, and many generations to come in our city. Grant them grace to lead with courage, leading with the heart even when others don't understand. Let each team of leaders in our city leave the city in better condition than they found it when they arrived. We trust that you have many exciting things ahead for the future of our city, Lord, but today, this day, in a week with a long-standing tradition of giving thanks, we in this chamber are going to pause. We are going to take a moment to contemplate what we really have been given as gifts from your hand. And then we're going to use the breath you have given us, this very breath, to say thank you for all of the many blessings you've poured out on us in Sioux Falls. We are grateful. Now, Lord, as these appointed leaders enter into the business of this city, we ask for your presence and your leading and your direction as they conduct these affairs of business in a way that will glorify you and your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda for this evening and asking if there's any changes or motions on this.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Councillor Kiley, seconded by Sale.
Mr. Mayor?
Selberg.
I'd like to amend item 4 by changing the date to November 30th.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second, Nitzert.
Okay, motion by Councillor Selberg to change that item, seconded by Nitzert. Can I have a vote on that, please?
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that amendment passes 7-0. Now we have the amended main motion to approve the consent agenda. Any other changes? If not, I'd ask for a vote on that, please.
Council members Kiley, yes. Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. Now we will move on to our regular agenda and look for a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Kiley. Any discussion, council, on the agenda? If not, I'd look for a vote on this, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0 as well. We're at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will not last more than 30 minutes. Because public input for all regular agenda items will be taken, you're asked to limit your general public input to topics that don't appear later on in our night's agenda. For this portion and regular agenda items, speakers are limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by this council. And at this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward for input. And clerk, please note the time is 7:07 p.m. Good evening.
Bruce Danielson. It's been a while since I've been here. A lot of things going on, but I thought it was important to come tonight because you're now in your 6-month anniversary, so to speak, of now being in this administration. And I want to thank the clerk and the clerk's office for putting together the book of what's going on here tonight. I wish more people would look at it, but it's wonderful. So thank you. It's also the six-year anniversary of the first time I spoke here. When a group of citizens were brought here and we tried to get a Snowgate election, and we were abused by the sitting council and the administration of that time, and we were ignored. 4 years ago, the council ignored and accepted a lie about swimming pools and what was going on, and we decided that we had to do something about it. It's been 2 years since several of you sat at this council for the first time, and we worked hard to get that done because we needed to get a council that was willing to start listening to what was going on in the town. And we've been very proud of much of the work that they've done. It's now been 6 months, just this year, that we now have a new administration. And when this administration came in, and we stood, Mr. Mayor, out on the front lawn, and I said I'd give you, 6 months, whatever time it took for you to get your feet wet and figure out what was going on. We talked about quite a few things. I want to thank you for what you have helped me, help get the answers for. It was wonderful. But there's a problem here, and I probably won't have time to get into all of it tonight, but we keep hearing from this administration, and just as in the past administration, that we have to run this government like a corporation. Corporations by nature are authoritarian. Our current political leaders in this country refuse to understand how to actually listen because it's easier to tell us happy talk. They want us to believe. By framing everything in a corporate mentality, it's the selling of a marketing message. as to how to rule. There's a huge leap between ruling and governing. Ruling is dictates and commands. Governing is bringing people together for common goals. We do not have a government, local, state, or federal, based on governing anymore. We have many ignorant rulers telling us what to do. We're here as citizens to ask you to believe in us, work with us, and don't relegate us to suffer the consequences just because there's this thought that we have to listen to rulers instead of leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Catherine Ripple.
Pull the mics down a little, Kathy.
My name's Catherine Ripple. I'm an advocate for the homeless and displaced persons. I'm very concerned about a phone call that I had recently with the, and I'm going to be very direct on this, with the private secretary of the Bishop of the Catholic Church. He feels that I should step back and do nothing and let everything take its course. I've been out here since 2014, having meetings, changing the infrastructure of the city, getting a homeless coalition together, et cetera, et cetera. I will not back off. Second of all, he said I'm causing trouble between organizations and for organizations. Well, I'm sorry about that. I guess I should be, but I'm not. If the organizations can't step up and take care of things, then somebody else has to. I am not asking the Catholic Church or any particular church to open their doors to help the homeless, to get them in a safe and warm environment. They are not being taken care of properly. Our city is not taking care of their own people. I don't know what it's going to take for people in our city to not just think they need clothing and food. I had 4 people come to me the other day who've been walking through the nights trying to keep warm because every time they stop, they're afraid of the authority, even though the authority isn't there at that particular moment. When I was, they were scared to death. So I drive them around in my car and keep them warm, and then I let them out someplace else, hope they can be safer again. We work with different agencies, as a rule, the people in our city, but I don't know why our city can't take care of our people. You've got buildings going up. You've got buildings you're selling, tearing down, land you're purchasing, big boy toys out by the airport, and I love big boy toys, ukes, diggers, you name it. But you can't come up with one building, a small little building to house people like the Salvation Army used to do, even as a start. They're not out there by choice, all of them. I've been told by the Catholic Church that they have to face their demons. Hey, everybody has demons. But their demons aren't necessarily because they acquired them on their own. Hepatitis you can catch from somebody. Alcoholism you can catch from your drinking because of your parents or someone else in your family. My daughter was a severe alcoholic. I don't have any alcoholic tendencies at all. I can't even drink. But her husband was. My husband was. Her husbands were. And so she never got to heal. I have another friend that has liver damage. I don't know how long she has. I made the promise to be out here for these people, to get them safe and to get them warm. And that's what I ask you to do right now. It's just come up with something between yourselves.
Thank you, Catherine.
I don't know what else to say to you all. You don't want them down there.
Thank you for your comments.
You don't want them down there. You say they're dirty.
Catherine,
and everything.
your
Give them
time.
a chance.
Thank you. Thank you. We hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, but you don't do anything.
Catherine. Good evening.
Hi, once again, I am Stephen Ciano, disabled veteran since '78, and fighting to have my actual disability acknowledged and compensated for, trying to get my rights, having to do with my belief system and my disability, having my medical needs met, and I've tried to do so with the city entities as well, and have somebody do something about the fact that I have been discriminated against, and I've had no help from city entities, and I reported this before, and I've been trying to get help through a couple administrations Well, I want to bring out the point that I have struggled. I have physical and mental disabilities, PTSD, and I've come up here struggling to breathe at times, struggling to stand, and struggling to see, to read without my glasses. And it's easier for me to make a coherent presentation in writing, sitting at the library, working on a computer, writing up something and sending it to you people. And I have done this, and I believe that the public has a right to know what I have been presenting, and I have gotten no answer from any of you on my request or demand that letters to you people be made public, be there for the public record, and I welcome some response at this time from one of you, if you may respond. And I yield the remainder of my time to Catherine Riffle if she wishes.
That's not allowed, unfortunately. So thank you for your comments. Anyone else for public input this evening? Hello, welcome.
I have been on the streets, put out on the streets myself by this action against me, and want this recognized.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi guys, week 3, 5G network. I was going to take the tack of, let's see, showing you these and then presenting the speech, but I've decided to go a different way. This is at the corner of 8th and Cliff. It's a cell phone tower that's been built into some metal tubing with a cross on top in front of a Lutheran church over that way. Here's another one. This is a building right downtown. It's an apartment complex, and the 5 4G towers have been painted so that they blend in with the building. I've presented to you for the last 2 weeks how dangerous this technology is, and I've heard somebody say, well, the FCC says they're safe, so they must be safe. Let me wake you up to a real fact of life. The government lies. Also, I know a lot of you care about your beautiful city, how great it's going to look. This is just the beginning of it, folks. This is 5G, the face of 5G. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be thick, black wires that lead up to some things that telecom companies won't even identify. I don't even know what they are yet. That's a big, thick black wire going up. This is right outside of downtown. Okay, and the wires are twice as thick. They're ugly, and this is just the beginning. We're just getting started. Now, I have to wonder if the FCC says these are safe, then why do they have to do this? Why do they have to hide them from the public? Because they're dangerous. And anywhere near the public is going to notice them, and they're going to complain about them because they cause problems. I look at this panel and I see intelligent faces, so I know you have to have a little common sense. And the common sense tells me, very first word I heard was microwaves. That was more than enough for me. I said, this ain't going to work. You're going to put up essentially an entire city full of microwaves, and you're going to be nuking people all day long, every day. And it just amazes me that you can actually still say, oh, well, this is fine. FCC says it's safe, so it must be safe. Government lies, folks. That's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm John Cunningham, 4904 South Oxbow in Sioux Falls. 2 weeks ago, I appeared before the council here to chastise you for making a contribution of tax dollars in kind to a political campaign of lies and deception. I understand since that time that an excuse has been offered for that, in something along the lines of, we've always done it that way. And if I've mischaracterized that, I apologize, because I've not heard the excuse given directly, but I will rebut it as I understand it to be. The first point is, it's never been that way. We've never had a situation like this before. Always before, if the president comes to town, it's for ostensibly a public information campaign to give his side, it's always been a man, his side of an issue of importance to the city and the nation. And in addition, the situation, the event has always been open to the public, to all citizens of Sioux Falls. And thirdly, it never has accrued the financial benefit of any person or organization, or certainly not a political campaign. None of that justification occurred this time. There is a sliver of justification in the quote ordinary scenario, but none of that ordinary scenario occurred this time. There's no sliver of justification. And even that justification is weak. When the president comes to give his side of a political opinion, it's always one-sided. It's never a complete public information like we would get from a fair and balanced situation from, let's say, the League of Women Voters. It's one-sided, and it's not necessarily obvious that the city of Sioux Falls is responsible for the president's security. The Secret Service is responsible, and if they don't have the personnel to provide the security, it's not obvious at all that it's the city's responsibility to fill in the gaps in their security system, and that we should we should subsidize the federal government for its lack of personnel. It's not in the city charter, and it does nothing to make the city of Sioux Falls a better place to live, work, and do business. So I believe there was absolutely no justification in this case at all, and a very weak justification in the, quote, normal circumstances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Good evening.
Tim Stenga. One thing I found out is when I bought my first house, I had to maintenance it. I had to go out and paint it. I had to go out and make sure the yard was the way I wanted it. I'd trim my trees. But it seems like when it comes to the city, on their facilities, maintenance really goes pretty thin. When it comes down to the fire and the police training facility, finding out that it's been on the books for over 20 years to be replaced. Why wasn't it replaced 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago? It's because we needed a Denny Sanford Center. We needed an indoor swimming pool. And we're going to be talking about something tonight that was brought up within the last 8 years that should have been done 8, 6, 4, 2 years ago. But see, when you bring this kind of stuff up, when you need a Denny Sanford Center or you need an indoor swimming pool, and then you start bringing in these other figures, then you're sitting here like this, oh, wait a minute. If we bring up this, the voters aren't going to vote for this. This city really plays games with the people. Just like the siding on the event center. We played games on that for I don't know how many months or how many years, and it still looks like crap. But never did we get the truth on that siding on the event center. Problem is, the people are suffering because we think we need things, but we put our needs in front of what we really need. And I'm just tired of being lied to, and it's going to start being told the truth.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
You too.
I'm actually surprised you're meeting today, but that's good. We're glad. I am coming, I'm not even going to bother to show pictures. You know who I am, you know why I'm here. I am from Oscar House Circle. You passed a project in my neighborhood a couple weeks ago, and we have some concerns about how things went down with that process. In July, there was a video put out that was going to be affordable housing for the Roosevelt community. And I don't call $150,000 buy-in and $1,500 a month affordable housing. Some of the concerns that we have is, why are we putting a 3-story apartment complex in a very established neighborhood? Why are we not limiting the size of what we're putting in established neighborhoods? We were told by the developer that there's plans to purchase an additional chunk of land to put up a second building. So the plans that were presented to you with one building really are not going to be one building. We're going to have a second building, and we get to go through this process all over again for a second building. So we're really frustrated, and I'm bringing it to your concern, or bring it to you with our concerns. I have a lot of unanswered questions. A water study was done that stated that the church that is adjacent to our property is flooding us. And we're being told by the city that they're going to enforce that if the developer in the new project starts to flood us, that they're going to enforce it. I'm also being told that no, it's going to fall back on the private landowner, and we're going to have to hire an attorney if there is a worse water problem. Second, we would have to try to prove how it's a worse water problem. I would have some advantage because I don't have a water problem right now, but if I do after the development, I will be able to prove that. The traffic on and off Keene Park Road, I was told there was a traffic study done. We've never seen anything. I'm concerned about that. I want to know who's going to enforce the water. We also want to know when the water study will actually be completed, because you were told that it was completed and it was not. There's still a groundwater study and a boring study that have to be done. I have yet to see any forms that road has been approved to have this project on there, so I would like to know why that's not being addressed. There's a berm, fence, and trees that they're going to put behind our property. I want to know what that consists of, who's going to be in charge of maintaining. Putting a fence when I already have a fence is going to create an alleyway, so I want to know who's going to be in charge of maintaining that. The big concern is the way this project was handled, folks. We can't be treating citizens like this, and not everybody can afford an attorney like we had to help us through the process. So I'm asking for you to relook at how you're processing these planning and zoning projects, and maybe just look at what we could do differently to communicate with the citizens better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sioux Falls. So the massage, illegal massages that was going on. So I contacted Mr. Ken Cutler by email and asked him what he was going to do with his tenants. This is his reply. Do we want him to do this? No, we don't. I'm involved with several entities which own and lease commercial property in Sioux Falls. All of our leases require tenants to comply with laws, ordinances, and regulations affecting their businesses. This holds true for our massage therapy tenants. While I'm involved in the ownership and leasing of our commercial properties, I'm not involved in the ownership or operation of our tenants' business. As my office has told you in the past, you feel free as there is a tenant who is not complying with the laws, ordinances, or regulations affecting their businesses. You should contact the proper authorities to express your concerns as they investigate them and take whatever action they deem appropriate. Apparently, based on your comments below, your reporting on at least one massage therapist tenant has led to some charges, although I am not familiar with the same. I'm not sure what you expect I should do as an owner of commercial property. To put things in perspective, we do not involve ourselves in our tenant's business, and I know of no landlord who does. If a tenant or one or more of their employees don't have the appropriate license, that is the board that issues and administrates the licenses. For example, if a tenant fails to secure a South Dakota sales tax license or fails to collect remit sales tax, that is a situation where the South Dakota Department of Revenue would be involved. Okay, then he goes on to say that I need to not spread lies about him at public input, okay? Now, here's the thing is, we went to the massage board, it's being investigated because Bridget's on the massage board, that's why I couldn't say anything until she was out of here because she was appointed by the governor. Sales tax license, she got one, sales revenue was on her for that. So when people get busted in a building, As a landlord and there's an arrest made, you have the right to evict, regardless if it's commercial residential, okay? Mr. Cutler chooses not to. Mr. Cutler is collecting illegal rent money. He has accepted the fact that his tenant is illegally massaging, illegally collecting the rent money, and he's collecting it for his establishment. I also called the Attorney General's office to bring him up on charges. Now, I have to call the police department to see if the police department will investigate and further the charges on Mr. Ken Cutler. Do I think that the police will do that? Probably not. We're talking about a judge and we're talking about an attorney here. I will make my complaint with the police department and give it fair warning and see what they do about it. But this is a very challenging case here. Any landlord can evict someone that's doing illegal activity.
Anyone else for public input? Clerk, next item, please.
Item 20, new 2018-19 retail malt beverage license for Regal Holdings Incorporated, Paradise Central Casino 2, 1821 West 12th Street, Suite D, with conditional use permit being approved on July 5th, 2018, pending plan review, permit issuance, and final inspections per Fire and Building Services. 21, request to include video lottery terminals with the new 2018-19 retail malt beverage license for Regal Holdings Incorporated, Paradise Central Casino 2, 1821 West 12th Street, Suite D, pending plan review, permit issuance, and final inspections per Fire and Building Services. Number 22, transfer of 2018 retail liquor license, including video lottery terminals from 50/50 Holdings Incorporated, Deuces Casino 9, 2601 South Carolina Avenue, to Commonwealth Gaming and Holdings Company, Deuces Casino 6, 510 South Valley View Road, Suite 1, CUP not required. 23, special one-day liquor license for T-Slat Incorporated, JJ's Wine, Spirits, and Cigars to be operated at Sanford Foundation House, 2335 East 60th Street North, for a Christmas party on December 6, 2018.
Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer questions on items 20 through 23, and I will need to request a motion to withdraw item 22. The item is just not quite ready yet. So.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public here to speak on any of these applications? All right. Councilors, do you have any questions for Jamie? I'd look for a motion. Councilor Kiley.
Motion to withdraw item 22.
Second, Brecky.
Okay, motion by Kiley to withdraw 22, seconded by Brecky. Councilors, can I get a roll call vote on that, please?
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. I'd look for a motion to approve items 20, 21, and 23 then.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve items 20, 21, and 23.
Second.
Okay, motion by Kiley, seconded by Sale. Councilors, any discussion on any of those items?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
if
Starr.
I could, Jamie, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused by item 23, and not that one in particular, but in general. When we do one-day license permits, what I'm trying to understand is it's not the person who has the party, but it's the person that's supplying the alcohol that needs the permit, or it seems like it goes back and forth. Sometimes it's the group that gets the permit, and sometimes it's the provider of the alcohol. And then we approve these because we're hoping that they follow the law and they do what they're supposed to as part of ServSafe and all of that. But tell me, is there a difference between the actual group itself that's having the party applying, or the facility, or the provider of the alcohol who ends up requesting the permit?
I'm not sure I understand your question totally, but let me see if this is what I understood. There's only certain people that qualify to be able to apply for special one days, and it's the civic, charitable, educational, fraternal, and veterans organizations or current license holders. So I guess it kind of depends on if the organization itself wants to be responsible for the alcohol, or if they want to just farm that out to someone else. Then if they're going to farm it out to someone else, and this is such the case, the T-SLAT organization actually has a license, so they would qualify to be able to apply for that specific license type. And this is a special one-day liquor, so they would qualify.
Perfect. Helps me understand it a little bit better, even in my roundabout way of asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions for Jamie on any of these items? Any discussion? I'd look for a vote on this then.
Council members Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Elberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Star,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. Next item.
Item 24, set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 24. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the southeast corner of East Austin Street and North Sherman Avenue from the RT1 Single Family Residential Traditional District, RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional, and RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density Districts to the S1 General Institutional District number 9430-2018 and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
Hey, Jason.
Good evening. Jason Bieber representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application by Julie Becker with the St. Francis House. It is located at the southeast corner of East Austin Street and North Sherman Avenue. It's roughly 1.05 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is they're looking at constructing a new 2-story building with 30 sleeping rooms for men and 30 sleeping rooms for women. And then the center portion of this building will be an area that will have a kitchen, office, and some meeting spaces. We did have 2 neighbors show up at the Planning Commission meeting on November 5th that did voice some opposition. I think their major concerns was security with the people that were staying there. I believe Julie with the St. Francis House has reached out to both of these property owners and has offered to give them tours and give them as much information as they need to ensure that the security of this new building will meet their needs in the neighborhood. So.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Jason on this? Councilor Kiley.
Yes. Jason, could you go back so I could see which specific properties are actually impacted?
Let me get the aerial here. So their existing building will stay. That's the one that's directly on the northeast portion of this property. And then I believe they purchased 6 or 7 properties that currently have homes on them, and then those will be raised, and that's where they will build their new facility.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Got to get rid of the cough drop here. I just wanted to say that Councilor Starr and I were able to go and actually visit with Julie, see the property. I would encourage everybody to do that if they haven't already. And I was thinking that she said they were going to have more. I thought it was 80 some beds that they're increasing to. Do you remember, Councilor Starr, what that was? Because you're saying it was 60?
That's what they originally had said as part of their application for the Planning Commission, but I can definitely reach out to her and get you that information for sure for second reading.
And I was contacted by one of the people who had a concern about this, and what I said, I've been a big supporter of the St. Francis House through the years, but I mean, it's been a homeless shelter. They've had random people coming in for years off the street, and now it's shifted to this long-term kind of a rehab situation where you have to have a job, you can't be drinking. I mean, it's really a chance to get people back on their feet. So I think actually they probably have upped their clientele from what they were before. So I'm thinking this could be a very good thing. The only concern I have is that we're going to be losing some houses on the south side of this. That doesn't excite me much, taking out homes. They own, I think, a lot of the homes already, but that's the second phase of this, I think. Am I correct with that, Jason? Yeah.
They own all the homes, and I believe they are looking at purchasing the 4 remaining houses that are on that block. They do not own them now.
And one more thing. The neat thing about the St. Francis House, they're doing this fundraiser. They have taken this much money from the city. It's all being privately donated. So that's really also kind of cool. And Julie said they want to keep it that way because they do not want to have any strings attached to what they do.
Is there other questions for Jason? Councilor Brecky.
Is the applicant here tonight?
I don't believe that she is here tonight. I didn't see.
Again, just a question about the homes and the fact that they're being raised. I guess I realize there's nothing that the city can do about that, but is there opportunities for the city to speak to them about that? How many homes are going to be raised in order to do this?
I believe it's 4 or 5, but I can definitely reach out to her and maybe have her contact you with some more information on that, or get that information for second reading and exactly what they're going to plan to do with those homes. So,
If nothing more, if we could just plant the seed, and if there is anything that we can do through our housing program to provide assistance to relocate or use them as fillers, it's just disturbing. I mean, we just had an informational briefing where the city, in order for a drainage issue, it was cheaper to, eliminate 13 houses than to build a structure to handle the drainage. And sometimes I wonder if that's wise to do. Maybe cheaper in the short term, but, the more we erode away our affordable housing, it's just a big concern of mine. So if you could just do that, I would sure appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions for Jason? If not, I'd look for a motion to set a date of hearing, second reading for Tuesday, December 4.
So moved.
Second, Selberg.
Moved by Kylie and seconded by Selberg. Counselors, you have discussion on this. If not, I'd ask for a vote, please.
Council members Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 25. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the northeast corner of East 26th Street and South Highline Avenue from the REC Recreation District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar Districts, number 9477-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant here is Katie DeRoshi with Casey's. The owner is Troy Dolly of the Dolly family. It's located at the northeast corner of 26th Street and South Highline Avenue, just east of the Rosa Park School. It's roughly 0.72 acres in size, the portion that they're rezoning. The purpose of this is the applicant is looking at constructing a new Casey's General Store on this portion of the property.
Thanks, Jason. Counselors, questions for Jason? Actually, before that, anyone from the public here to speak on this? All right, counselors, questions for Jason? If not, I'd look for a motion. Set a date of hearing, second reading for Tuesday, December 4.
Move approval, Selberg.
Second.
Okay.
Sale.
Moved by Selberg, seconded by Sale. Counselors, you have discussion on this item? If not, a vote, please.
Council members Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg? Yes. Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 26.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 26. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 51 of the Code of Ordinances of the city pertaining to electric rates.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We've got 3 readings tonight to frame up, so I just wanted to say a few notes on the front side, then we can get into each individual item. Tonight is the first reading to adjust rates for 3 of the 5 utilities that we presented to you last week. We want to thank you for your time that you've provided us to present the rate case so we can recommend the minimum rate adjustment required to carry out the operations, maintenance, and the capital needs of these utilities. Over the course of the year, we've developed summaries to capture the key drivers of each of these utilities. Sioux Falls continues to have very constant and steady growth, which requires investment in these key utilities. The one-page summary that we presented to you last week really highlights, not only for you but for our customers, the top, which is the schedule. We did the informational meeting on November 13th. First reading is tonight, November 20th. And then there'll be a 2-week break, and then the second reading would be, is currently scheduled for December 4th. It does start out with the highlight of no rate increase is being recommended 2020 through 2023 for water purification or sanitary landfill, both of which have a very broad customer base that will enjoy those utilities for those 4 years with no rate increase. We also certainly want to highlight, and we've got slides if you'd like to see it, that Sioux Falls benchmarks very well against other partnering communities when we look at our rates, and we continue to enjoy very reliable and affordable rates for our utilities. Tonight we'll take you through electric light, then storm drainage, and water reclamation. Let's get started. Okay, continued investment in the existing infrastructure reduces risk and maintains uninterrupted service. Enterprise accounts cover the true cost of the enterprise, including the operations, maintenance, periodic capital replacement, new capital acquisitions and improvements, and debt service requirements. Sioux Falls Electric Light and Power 2020 through 2023 rate analysis. Jerry Jungling leads this team, this division in Public Works. A quick snapshot, some facts about this particular utility, most of which get their electric service from Xcel Energy. The city of Sioux Falls actually has a very small defined electric territory that you'll see has just 2,710 customers. Over 400 of those are governmental accounts. We highlighted our top 10 customers, the top one being schools. There's 14 buildings, and then water purification plant is the second. The reason we really highlight that is that this utility provides very good, stable cost utility electric service, and the fact that the water plant is one of the key top users allows everybody in the city of Sioux Falls to have good, steady electric rates through their water system. Premier Center, Guards, Dairy Regional Airport, and others make up the top 10 customers. All right, some key facts to know about this utility. We've successfully negotiated long-term power purchase agreements to secure reliable and cost-effective power with WAPA, which is the Western Area Power Administration. They manage the power that's generated off the dams on the Missouri River, and then we buy our supplemental power above and beyond that from Heartland Energy. They're a nonprofit that's based out of Madison and serve over 20 municipal customers. The power cost, when you look at the operating cost of this utility, 72% is that us just buying that power and then reselling it, so that's a key driver in this budget. This team also provides and maintains over 20,000 street lights for safe vehicle and pedestrian traffic. There's no debt in this utility, and there's no debt planned in this utility. A couple of the key capital drivers that are in the capital plan that we recently went through with you back in August, the annual circuit improvements, along with the additional substation that we'll build over on Madison Street near the Big Sioux River. Those project costs collectively over that 5-year period are $4.47 million. And then toward the end of the 5-year plan, we brought not only the light and power team together, but the traffic maintenance team together. Their current facility that they operate in was built in 1889. It just really isn't functional for the teams that we have today and the size and the weight of the equipment. And so toward the end of the 5-year capital plan, we've budgeted for a new office and shop facility. All right, here's the cash targets and balance projections that this utility really strives for. And Councilor Neitzer had a question recently, are we comfortable not having that line in 2023 not meet its target? And we are. We've taken a close look at the utility. That's a snapshot in time. We believe it'll actually be smoother than that, because when you build a substation and ultimately start to deliver those various elements, it'll have more of a smoothing effect as opposed to, as sharp as what that looks. And so we're recommending the 4 years of 3% rate increase, and then ultimately this will smooth back up to its target by 2026 and allow us to only recommend the minimum rate increase needed to run this utility. All right, a snapshot of what the typical monthly electric bill is for a residential customer in this electric utility. 2020 with a 3% rate adjustment with a usage of 456 kilowatt hours. Their 2019 bill would be today $61.08. This 3% adjustment would add $1.83 to that bill with an adjusted amount of $62.91. We've also done the math for the other 3 years for your display. And with that, we're here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Councilors, questions for Mark on this? Councilor Staley.
Mark, how does this electricity compare with Xcel Energy's rates?
We did that analysis a couple years back, and so we haven't done it for today, but I remember when we looked at it back then, it was very close, very competitive to Xcel Energy.
Because I'm going to vote to pass this through the first reading, but I would like you to, if you could compare that. If we're paying, I have Xcel Energy, so if is it kilowatt, how do you, what's the?
Kilowatt hours.
If that is apples to apples, I'll be comfortable with this. If our city rates are higher, I'm not going to be comfortable. And I know I've heard from residents who are having this service, and I don't think they have a choice, do they? I mean, they can't say, I'm going to switch over to Xcel Energy.
They don't. They're defined territories, but each utility has its own drivers, and so.
No, I understand,
Xcel
but I
Energy
just
would-
want all citizens to be treated equally. Okay, just to let you know. So that's what I would ask from you.
Certainly. We haven't done that analysis for some time, but I would just share with you that Xcel Energy has different cost drivers than we do. We also have a much smaller customer base than Xcel Energy. So just be, I think, prepared to see, and they have a much different rate structure than we do. But we'll do our best to do a comparison for you.
Well, and if I may say, you haven't heard me use this argument. I did it back in 2016. I've been saying it even before then. But I like to compare these utilities to the PUC. And with the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, when they have a rate increase in front of them by whether it's the NSP, is that Mid-American, Xcel Energy, they don't just automatically get what they're asking for. That gets vetted out. They give the public a chance to call in. They let everybody know this is happening. They've asked for these increases. It's a pretty lengthy, in-depth, comprehensive process. So I've always felt that here in Sioux Falls, we really don't have that. I've watched rates being proposed, rates passing. There's usually never any compromise or any discussion about it. So just to tell you that with this electrical thing, I think it fits in perfectly with what we're already doing within our state, to ask, at least for the comparison part.
Certainly.
Other questions from Mark? Councilor Brecky.
Just a couple questions about the substation. Is that a replacement facility, or is that going to be over and above what we currently have and something that we're building for our future?
So we currently only have one substation. This would be an additional one. This would be our second substation. And so one of the items that we've seen over time is we're having load growth that's happening in our area. So very similar to a circuit that you may have in your own home, that if it gets too long and gets overloaded, it'll trip. And so we've done a master plan to really look at not only our current assets and what they can handle, but projected what growth we expect. And it's really to time so we can shorten some of those circuits and then have redundancy with 2 substations. So it'll actually be an addition so we can have good, reliable power.
And then how long into the future should that serve our needs? I mean, how far are we building out in front of?
I know our projections were over 20 years, and we don't see a need for another substation. So we purchased the land several years ago, cleared it, have been maintaining it, put up a large sign to communicate to the driving public, but also the adjacent neighbors that there'll be a future substation here, and we'll be a good neighbor when we build the substation.
Is our territory finite? I mean, it can't really expand, right? Because of the location?
There is, I understand there's some state law that provides some additional flexibility to municipal electrics if they wanted to expand, but we just truly haven't. We have a great relationship with Xcel Energy, and sometimes it makes sense for us to exchange customers because of where someone's infrastructure may be and just based on proximity. So our teams usually kind of thoughtfully look at that about every 2 to 3 years, and you'll see us exchange maybe this house for another house, and they'd be just to kind of smooth out the territorial boundaries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you.
Director Cotter, I guess I'm curious, Councilor Staley kind of brought something to mind, is why are we in this business as a municipality? It seems to me when we look at the list of the top customers that you provided, schools, city, ourselves, because the power's coming from WAPA or the dams, and I think doesn't Heartland gets most of their power from kind of the same location, and we're in the business to resell it as a municipality because the federal government's paying for the generation part of it so that we pass that savings on. So we should be, from a philosophical standpoint, providing power at a less expensive rate than what maybe Excel does. Because we're providing that service to other nonprofits or schools, municipalities, probably the county if they were in the right defined territory. So I guess overall, what's the philosophy of why this enterprise exists and why we're even in this business and we wouldn't just turn it all over to Excel at some point?
Great question. So you actually have to be a municipal or a cooperative to buy power from WAPA. And so the Xcel Energy, they have to invest in their own power plants, Big Stone, their own wind farms, and so they have to actually pay and then own portions of generation facilities so then they can sell those back to their customers. We're fortunate that the fact that we're a municipality, we can buy from WAPA, and we get about 45% of our power off the dams, very green power, very stable power, and then the other 55% we get from Heartland. Heartland is just very similar to an Excel where they've got to invest in their own wind farms, they got to invest in their own generation facilities, and then we buy our supplemental power from them. And so not everyone can buy off the dams, just municipals and cooperatives. And so just to have good, stable electric supply and rates, then directly allows basically everyone in the city to enjoy that because the water plant is the second largest user. So there's a direct and an indirect benefit, I would tell you, and we've had that question before. This team is very well run. It's small in nature and provides a very good service.
Well, and I think one of the other things that most of us spent some time today with is public-private partnerships and watching things come to fruition with the USD Discovery District and seeing some of that. This utility or this enterprise fund has the potential to serve as a driver of economic development, whether or not that it was, a plant or whatever could go in that area that would be a large user of that would supplement then the enterprise to continue to make it affordable and to pass those savings on to that. So I totally see the philosophy of what we're trying to do here and try to keep it in a reasonable increases in rates of what it takes to provide this energy in a way. And you pointing out the green part of it was something that I wasn't considering as well in that process. So thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Councilors, do you have other questions for Mark? I'd entertain a motion on this to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4.
So moved, Starr.
Second, Sale.
So moved by Councilor Starr and seconded by Sale. Any discussion on this, Council? All right, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. Item 27.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 27. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 51, Utility Rates and Charges, subchapter Storm Drainage, and subchapter Stormwater Drainage System Improvement Cost Recovery.
All right, thank you. This second utility is the storm drainage utility, and we're going to speak tonight about two portions of this fund. We've got the storm drainage fee that property owners pay on their taxes, and then there's a second revenue source, which is called platting fees that developers pay at platting. We'll take you through similar slides that we went to at the informational meeting and answer your questions. So the storm drainage fund, I know a number of you were able to go out to 43rd and Marion and see that large underground new detention facility being constructed this last year. And maybe if you didn't, you've seen it on the news. That essentially that neighborhood, the drainage in that neighborhood was below standards. not very much for intakes, no detention. And so what that project did is not only did it create underground detention under Marion Park, but it improved about 22 neighborhood blocks and the storm collection system. So we can essentially positively affect about 250 mature acres of neighborhood, appropriately collect that storm water, route it to this underground detention facility that will hold about 5 million gallons of storm water, slowly release it to protect downstream properties, and ultimately upgrade that neighborhood to today's standard. Drainage fees pays a key portion of improving neighborhoods, drainage, and then the other plating fee revenue. As you look at those boxes, those are the respective areas, the buckets that they fill. Drainage pays funds the operation and maintenance, a portion of the flood control system, a portion of the capital improvement area, dollars in developing areas, and then we also have capital improvements in existing areas, and then there is additional O&M that comes with maintaining the flood control system. All right, just some great before and after photos of infrastructure that gets upgraded on an annual basis. These inlet repair projects are great projects for us to move in and do, normally upwards of 100 a year. Channels, we've got a number of drainage channels in town that, over time have eroded. We go in, we work with the adjacent property owners, redesign. A lot of times there's also a sanitary sewer system that runs parallel or in conjunction with those, and so we'll reestablish where the sanitary sewer system is, get a bench established so our maintenance crews can actually maintain it once we're done. And again, some of these areas were very mature. They never were established to a standard of what you see in the after, but we're doing about one of these significant projects a year and really improving neighborhood drainage and channels. Sump pump retrofits, so a key portion of this fund not only funds the portion with new development, but also the retrofits. And so here's a picture of a front yard retrofit where you'll see that house that's a constant pumper, and a lot of times they're a constant pumper 12 months a year. And so not only is it a safety issue during the summer where you can have algae growing on the sidewalks and the roads, but in the wintertime, icing, and we'll see significant icing issues with these constant pumpers. So we identify them, prioritize them, and we do about 3 to 5 of these retrofit projects a year. Cleaning channels, we already covered that, but this is what happens when you, on the left-hand side, if that channel's not operating at a good capacity, or the pipes to get the water from the intersection to that channel, and so we make those improvements to ultimately reduce that effect. And then one of the key aspects of maintaining a storm drainage system is to keep the silt and debris out of it. So the first sweeping every year, we usually run really hard to actually go out right after the snow melts and get those streets swept and clean, keep that out of the intakes and storm drainage pipes. The large BMPs, they're essentially just large stormwater drainage facilities that are designed to capture, hold, let the sediment silt settle, and then ultimately flow over a weir and out to the river. And then the levee system, we've enjoyed having the levee systems upgraded and certified. Now it's important that we have a team that maintains them on a daily basis. All right, really, why does this utility exist? It exists to safely convey stormwater runoff to the Big Sioux River, prevent property damage through the construction of regular maintenance of the urban storm drainage system, use modern technology to identify drainage improvements to be incorporated into the CIP, comply with state and federal water quality while partnering with other agencies to promote water quality efforts in the Big Sioux watershed. Here's a list of those 5 large capital projects that we went through last week at the informational meeting. You'll see that there's a significant investment into the existing areas and developing areas. And really that last one, that regional stormwater improvements, those are the areas like the 43rd and Terry where we're taking a look from a regional standpoint. We've modeled about 25% of the city, identified where those bottlenecks are, and those that we've identified are in the 5-year capital plan, and will continue with your support of this rate increase to continue to carry out and improve neighborhood drainage. All right, to give you a snapshot of what the annual drainage fee impact will be, the recommendation is from 2020 to 2023, 5.4, 5.4, 4.4, and 3.4. This is on an annual basis, not a monthly basis. So if you follow the first line across in 2020 with a 5.4% rate increase, if your typical residential lot size is 7,500 square feet, with that financial charge, your 2019 annual storm drainage fee would be $51.08. This recommended rate increase would add an additional $2.75 to that on the annual basis to adjust the annual fee up to $53.83. And then we've done the math for the additional years. All right, now to just give you a snapshot on the two platting fees, there's really two key platting fees. One is called the DSCR, the Drainage System Recovery Fee, and it's really to fund the construction and the oversizing of storm drainage facilities. And then the regional detention charge, when we go out and we identify an area that's to build a pond, that's largely going to probably be in place to serve about a 200 to 300 acre area. The RDC platting fee is used to pay for the land. Okay, so it's the top one pays essentially for the construction of the ponds and the oversizing of the pipes to get the water to the pond, and then the regional detention charge funds the land portion. All right, so last time we updated the platting fee was back in 2018. One of the things, and then we set rates in place for a few years. The first thing we did was we updated those platting fees to $2018, applied an inflationary driver out to 2023, and then worked through an iterative process to do a phased approach so we could have a phased fee adjustment on platting fees. This would start in 2019 through 2023. The other item that I know we talked about was we've added a platting fee. This really was a good collaborative process with the development community, where we had specific standards in our drainage ordinance that really, in some case, kind of tied the hands of more of a performance-based design. And so we had a rule that basically said if you had a 5-acre lot, so picture a large office lot or an industrial lot, the standard said you had to build on-site detention, and then it had to be of such a size that it would be releasing at a rate of single-family drainage flows. Well, we've had several subdivisions come to us. You're starting to see larger subdivisions get graded all at once, and their question was, if we built a larger pond and ultimately conveyed larger pipes to get it there, wouldn't that be more efficient than having, say, in creating one common pond as opposed to several small ponds that ultimately have to be maintained? So we did a deep dive. We formed a subcommittee with IRAB and really looked through a number of the drivers, the pros and the cons, and then just recently IRAB did approve that, so we could recommend this additional platting fee that you'll see on the second line right below single family is called the hybrid fee. It's slightly greater than single family and really provides a good balance on a developer in this case can either look at a performance-based or more of a prescriptive base of designing their stormwater flows. Our recommended rate increases are along the bottom for the platting fees for the DSCR, 7.4, 6.4, 5.4, 5.3, and 3.4. And then the RDC, the regional detention fee, this is the platting fee that's collected from, if we're going to serve a 200 to 300 acre area, all that platted land pays into this fund, and then we use those revenues to go out and buy that one large pond. The recommended rate increases to bring those up to current costs is 5.5, 4.0, 3.5, 3.0, and 3.0 over the span of 2019 to 2023. We're here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone from the public who wish to speak on this item? From Mark. Councilors, questions for Mark on this? Councilor Staley.
Mark, back to the storm drainage fund, repairs of deteriorated inlets, slide 12.
Sure.
I'm seeing that's work within, on top of a street, correct? It's within a street project.
In that case, there would be there's an asphalt patch to accomplish to, get that done.
So we're commingling the utility, the enterprise fund money with the second penny for the street? Would that be correct?
I think it just depends on the size. If it's a very isolated inlet repair, typically storm drainage will drive that. If we're going in and doing storm drainage repairs and streets, then sales tax would pay for their street elements, storm drainage would pay for their utility elements. Same thing if we went into that same street, made a manhole repair, water reclamation will fund that. If we upgraded a fire hydrant, water purification would fund that. So we do our best to make sure that those utilities essentially stand on their own.
Okay. And then the plating fee issue, and I see IRAB approved that. Was that a unanimous approval from like the home builders and all the people involved, or were there some people who had concerns about that?
There was a good discussion at a subcommittee, and then a good full body. I don't have the exact vote, but I can get that for you for second reading.
But so it wasn't unanimous.
No, I didn't say that. I don't have the exact vote count, so I can bring that back to you for second reading if it was unanimous or if
I see. Okay.
had any questions.
Yes, I'd like to see that.
I'll bring that back for you.
Other questions for Mark? Councilor Neitzer?
I just want to recognize and thank Lance Weatherly and Andy Berg for spending quite a bit of time with me today going through this particular one. This is one of the more complicated ones just because there's so much terminology and to understand it and to really kind of go into how they kind of got there and backed into the numbers and then to understand this whole hybrid thing. And I know that the developers actually like the hybrid model because that actually gives them a couple of options, whereas they were kind of pinned in before. They can kind of make the choice, do I want to detain to a certain level and pay the hybrid rate, or do I want to go the other route? And they can decide whether to detain on site or if they want to release and let it go to do the regional detention, and they can kind of decide. They can basically do their pro forma and figure out what numbers work best and what works better for my development. Do I want to give up my land and my development to put the detention here, or do I want to pay a different rate and send it down to the detention? So it gives them some different options. So it's not just simply you're going to pay this much or whatever. So the flexibility, I think, is something that they appreciated too.
That's right. Thank you. We'll share that comment with them.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions from Mark? Councilor Kiley.
Not a question, just I would like to say I appreciate the fact that we're paying special attention to our storm drainage system, because we all know that 100-year rains are now occurring twice a year. 500-year rains are coming every year. And the ability to move that water from our streets to the Big Sioux River, it's imperative that we do that and that we maintain this infrastructure. Otherwise, it's our citizens that do suffer. So we owe it to them to stay on top of this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Neitzer?
One other comment. This is a great example of how the utilities in the special funds, they're constantly looking at the numbers, and so you've got projections of, we think there's going to be this percentage of single family that's going to get built and this percentage of commercial, and you do your numbers based on that, and then you watch and you see what really happens, and you can't exactly see the future, and you see that there's maybe a little more single, or a little less or a little more single family, and they pay different platting fees. So let's say if you say it's going to be 80% single family and 20% commercial, but it ends up being 85 single family, 15 commercial, the money you take in is a little bit less than maybe you projected, and so you've got to tweak the dials a little bit and adjust the rates and all those different ones, and so it's you can just kind of keep making those corrections as you go along, and this is just a great example of that. Was part of it too, is trying to just make sure that those numbers are right sized so that we can make those investments in infrastructure. So
thank you, Councilor. Councilors, I'd ask for a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4 for item 27.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Sale. Councilors, discussion on this? Clerk, a vote, please.
Council members Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 28.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 28. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending sections 51.081 and 51.081.01 of the Code of Ordinances of the city pertaining to wastewater.
All right, wastewater is the third utility that we'll talk about tonight, and I just want to set it up with some, key facts that we've seen over time is that this utility has required a rate increase each year since 2007. The first 4 years, really, when we did a deep dive into really identifying the amount of investment that we needed to start to make into this utility required double-digit rate increases, and then since 2011 to current, they've essentially been in that single-digit rate. We still benchmark very well against our partnering communities in the region, and so we want to make sure that you kind of frame that up when you look at some of the benchmark information. I want to make sure also just there's been some great leadership on not only from this current council but past councils. In 2003, when the city really took a thoughtful look at funding conservation, and just to give you some stats of what conservation has done for our customers' rates, and not only on their wastewater bill but on their water bill, if they can save usage, it's a win-win because they save on their water bill and they save on their wastewater bill. Just to give you a perspective, when we started the conservation program and really asking people to consider to conserve, take advantage of the rebate programs for changing out their high flow toilets, their shower heads, things of that nature. Back in 2003, we were having about 69 gallons per capita per day. Okay, so when you look at our population, think about that 69 gallons per capita per day. Over time, as people have changed out their toilets, put in low flow, been more conscious about the water that they use, that number has gone down from 69 gallons per capita per day to 53 gallons per capita per day. So then when you do the math and you take that difference by our current population, that saves the community almost 3 million gallons per day. So then extend that out for 365 days. And when you can start to really show not only that you don't have to harvest 3 million gallons per capita per day that you save, and then you also don't have to treat it, not only does the community and the utility save dollars because they don't have to go after more source water, but ultimately our customers have really saved on their wastewater bills. That has probably had a positive impact on the life of our wastewater plant in that 5 to 7 year range. So just that leadership of instituting those kinds of programs is important. I also wanted to share with you, back in 2009, we consistently seen that this plant could treat more than what it was rated for. And so about 2 years prior to that, we did a thoughtful, in-depth study. It was about a $200,000 study that looked at every element of the treatment plant, what its capability was, what the biologic was as it went in, as it came out, wrote a study, demonstrated to the state of South Dakota that it was originally rated for 13.4 million gallons per day. The report that we submitted recommended it should be re-rated up to 21 million gallons per day, and they accepted that recommendation. That, again, probably extended the cost and the timing, probably extended the timing of this expansion by another 5 to 8 years. And so there's just a number of factors that have happened. So when you think about the current plant that was built and went into operation in 1984, by the time this rehabilitation and expansion is done, that plant will have operated for 40 years and really served this community, which anytime you can extend the life out of infrastructure over multiple generations of customers really allows your customer rates to be reliable and affordable, and that's what you'll see in the benchmark slides if you'd like to look at them. So let's get started. All right, current state, we've got aging infrastructure. We've got steady, constant population growth in not only Sioux Falls, but the region. We have a growing industrial and commercial base. We've got requests for regionalization, and we are anticipating future regulatory requirements. We've shared this graph with you that we've really, that bottom blue bar, that's a kind of a foothold for us. We always want to have at least 90 days of our operating budget in the bank so we can effectively run this utility. And then the light blue bar, that's the capital, cash-funded capital that we carry out each year. So our second target is that other more higher horizontal bar. The recommended rate increase to be able to not only make the $100 million investment into the collection system and then the $160 million investment into the treatment plant would require a 6% rate increase in 2020, then 5%, 4%, and 3%. Our current models run out today at about a 3% inflationary increase over time, and those get extended, but we wanted to be able to really show you that this financial graph really shows how will this utility not only meet its operation, its maintenance, its debt service needs now and into the future. All right, we've taken a look. What's that typical customer, typical residential customer in Sioux Falls? There are customers that we'll show you in another slide that use less than this. There are customers that use more. But the typical customer uses 4,638 gallons per month. If that has a 6% rate increase, that's also a 6.2 CCFs, that's 100 cubic feet. The previous year, or the bill in 2019, would be $32.25 with a 6% rate increase. That would add $1.89 to their monthly bill to adjust their bill up to $34.14. We've done the math for the other rate increases of 5, 4, and 3, and have also shown that that monthly rate adjustment softens over time as it goes from $1.89 down to $1.09. All right, this one, I just think that there's some value in showing this slide, because if you look second to the last row where it says 6.2, that is our typical residential customer at 4,638 gallons. But if you look at the top, because we have a, just to share with you what a consumption unit is, if you will, 1 CCF or 100 cubic feet of water is 748 gallons. We today have 2,379 customers that normally just use 1 consumption unit. Okay, that's 5.38% of our customer base. And then if you go over to the side, what would their impact be in 2020 of the 6% rate increase? They would see a 54-cent per month adjustment on their bill. Now jump down to 4 units. That has about 2,992 gallons of usage per month. There's about 7,694 customers that traditionally use 4 consumption units every month. That's about 17% of our customer base. If you do the cumulative total of everyone that uses 4 consumption units or less, that's 52% of our current residential customer base. So when you look at what would this rate impact be at a 6% for over half of our customers, that's $1.32 per month. Okay, so I think this slide helps organize that. A lot of times we have to pick what that benchmark customer is, or what our typical customer is, which is 6.2. But just so you can see, 72% of our customers actually use 6% or less, 6 units or less. Okay. All right, the summary slide on where this utility looks at against the other utilities, light and power, we showed that that was a $1.83 impact for 2020. Storm drainage, if you take that annual rate increase of $2.75, divide that by 12, that gets you 23 cents per month. Water reclamation on that typical customer would be $1.89. So what we've brought forward to you tonight Most of the customers in town have a storm drainage and water reclamation, so the monthly impact in 2020 would be $2.12. That's what we have for you. We're here to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Welcome.
Tim Stanga. Good job, Mark. Thank you. You pretty much said not enough, but I want to know a little bit more about the electrical rates because I'm in on all three of these. I guess what I want to look at is the people that are on budgets. Right now, I have a neighbor that's on a budget. They can't make it through the month right now. And yes, it doesn't sound like much on a rate increase on everything, but for people that are on fixed incomes, I don't care. A dollar is a dollar. If you have money, a dollar, you can just throw that in the wind and let it blow, and it doesn't mean nothing. But there's a lot of people in this town that a dollar means a lot, and to be able to make it to the end of the month, it means a lot. Mark hit a little bit on, we get the toilets out and we, do stuff with showers and everything. I know Mark, he hates it when I come up here and talk about this, but the less water you use during the winter tells you how much you're going to be using, how much you're going to pay on your sewer bill. So if you're washing your clothes 4 times a week, you cut back to 3 times a week, that's going to save you on your sewer bill. I know Mark hates it when I say that, but that's the truth. So if you can cut down on your water usage during the winter, it will save you on your sewer bill at the end of the year, during the summer. Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on this item? Councilors, questions for Mark on this item? Councilor Staley.
Or do you want me to wait till we have discussion? Or
Do you have questions for Mark?
Probably not so much as statements. Okay.
Any questions for Mark? Let's get a motion on the table then, and we'll move to discussion. Look for a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 4 for this item.
So moved.
Second, Selberg.
Okay. Moved by Kiley. I'm going to give that to Selberg for the second. Sorry, Kurt. Discussion on this item, Council. Councilor Staley.
Go ahead.
Councilor Sale, you can have the floor.
Yes, on this item, I had a discussion today with a constituent, and he had the sewage back up in his basement. And he told me, he said, for Sale, you better vote for this, because... Sorry, Tim. Look, I had a constituent talk to me today about a time he had sewage back up in his basement. And he said, Councilor Sale, you better vote for this because I'm not sure what it's going to cost, but I know the cost to me to have sewage in my basement. And 20 years from now, I want to be able to flush my toilet and do the things. And as Bruce pointed out earlier, we've been sitting here for about 6 months, and the 6 months prior to that, as I talked to people around Sioux Falls, our aging infrastructure was one of their main concerns. The fact that we are having those 100-year rains more regular than we did before, and the fact that it's been a long time since we've paid attention to some of these things. And the previous mayor in his first few months had to deal with sewage dumping into the Sioux River. I don't ever want to go back there again. And so I think that this is well thought out. The time and the energy that's been put into this by our city staff has been huge. And I tried to poke holes in it, and I looked at it, and I've discussed it with more people more knowledgeable than me, and I can't find any holes in it. So I would certainly hope that we could get unanimous consent from the council tonight to go ahead with his first reading.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley.
Well, first of all, today at the 4 o'clock meeting, Tom Huber from our finance department he was speaking about the monthly report. And he said that, I thought it was interesting because he was talking, Councilor Neisert asked him a question about performance. And he said, we've had ups in our economy and down, and we can't always count on how we're going to perform. You just don't know in the future how things are going to play out. And I just thought that was very interesting in my concern for moving forward with this. First of all, and I've made a few little cards here. As a teacher, I like to have some visual aids. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mayor Tenhagen. He met with my city staff, the council staff, Janet Brecky, and some of the Public Works Department, Mark Cotter. And we talked last Tuesday about my concerns. And I had a list of concerns I wanted a promise of protection for the citizens. And so I appreciated his willingness to do that. And also, for the record, I want to say I believe our mayor has a very good heart. I think he cares about our people. I think he's trying to do the right thing for our city. I think he's been dumped on his lap a huge issue. We never heard, and so thanks to the mayor, and forgive my little $260 million artwork here, but we never heard about this during the campaign. This was never debated between the political candidates for mayor. How are you going to handle a $260 million expenditure? This is the biggest expenditure we've ever had in our city. Never talked about. I didn't hear it for 2.5 years on the council. I asked my colleagues, I got together with 3 of them to talk about this. I said, hey, did you guys hear about this? No, we didn't discuss this. This wasn't on our radar. We talked about the administration building. We talked about opening the new pool, many things, but this waste treatment plant was not discussed. City council members didn't discuss it. So I feel for the mayor because I think he's trying to do the best he can to make this thing happen. I have said throughout this discussion, I want to protect the citizens. I think that we have people living on fixed incomes. I think we have people who are struggling to make ends meet. And let's face it, water, sewer, basic necessity. They have no choice. They have to use this utility. Protecting them. I'm committed to affordable quality of life for all people. And I want to protect the citizens both physically, when we were talking about sewer backup, of course, we don't want to do that, have that happen, but fiscally as well, moving forward. I actually had this next chart. This is the water reclamation historical rate increases. And this is one of my staff people put this together. Jim, can you make that even a little bigger? Can you? And so I've been following this since about 2011. But if you see, we've had rate increases every year. Now, 2016 was the last time this council passed those. We haven't voted on it since I've been in office. But we have continued to raise rates on the reclamation side of our water and sewer bill. And we have a cumulative 132% rate increase. But, Jim, if you go to the next slide, please. I had our budget analyst today make that, thank you, kind of center that down. A constituent said to me, Teresa, really, if we want to be accurate about this, let's look at the cumulative increase because it's not based, I think about this when I'm going to buy a CD. I always say, is this compounding monthly or does it compound annually? You get more money back if you let your CD compound monthly. This is compounding annually, and so when it comes down to the end of 2019, our citizens have actually had a 248% rate increase on their sewer bill. I'm not going to the water bill. This is the sewer bill. Now, this is why I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen as we move forward with this $260 million project. Because let's remember, this is based on projected population growth, and it's also going to come out of the user fees of our toilet usage, gray water. So this is once we take this debt out and we build all the infrastructure, we're going to have to pay for this out of that fund. Next slide, please, Jim. So in my meeting last week with the mayor, I'm so appreciative that he and Mark Cotter met with us. I asked him some questions, and I'm wanting to see the long-term payment that we're going to have on this 20-year loan, taking out $260 million. And by the way, let me say, just to put it into perspective, that would be equal to 10 administration buildings. It's over twice the cost that we put into the event center. So this is a big deal. So I know we have these reclamation rates, and Mr. Cotter, Director Cotter just talked about that. It looks pretty nebulous. It looks pretty innocent. But if you look at the debt, it's starting to kick in 2024. It's doubled from 2018. So we're going to start having these debt payments coming in. And I did want to have the whole 20 years planned out there, but I didn't get that. If you see, it's only going to 2023. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, if we had a 48% increase, and Tony, if you want to show this up on the screen again, please. If we had a 248% increase without this facility, what is going to happen when we have a $260 million waste treatment plant to pay for? So continue to go, please. Next slide. I have a concern about people on fixed incomes, and I asked the mayor, and then I asked our budget analyst to look at this. I said, what is the cost of living adjustment for people on Social Security? Is that keeping up with these rate increases? And actually, it didn't keep up at all with the rate increases we have done. But if you see, people on a fixed income are not getting hefty raises. In fact, I think we're using the 3% rate across the board for what we give our ambulances. I think our city employees might have gotten that recently as well. So thank you, Jim. I think that's our last slide, right? So here's the situation I've been talking about, and I know I've taken some heat from this, is the worst case scenario. As we move forward, what's the worst case scenario? And I've put out there, it's just speculation, because this is all based on speculation. We really don't know what we're going to grow. We're hoping we double in size, but we really don't know. So, I'm saying, well, is the worst case speculation that we have $300 a month bill to pay our debt, $260 million? Is the worst case, is it $250 a month that we could be facing? Perhaps it's going to be $200 a month, or maybe $150 a month. We just don't know. So that's why I've got some questions. And so people are saying, well, Teresa, does that mean you don't think we need to do anything? I'm saying absolutely not. Looking at options. And so an option I'm bringing forward, a solution I'm going to bring forward is a second penny resolution. A resolution that is going to allow the second penny to be freed up if needed as we move down the road and we don't grow as projected and we've got this debt to pay off. And let me just say, any of you who have purchased a home or an auto, you have to pay it off. And they'll give you an amortization schedule, but you got to pay it back. And I don't care if this is a revolving loan or a low interest loan, we're going to have to pay this back. It's not free money. And it's coming right now, the way it is, it's going to be right on the backs of your water and sewer bill. It's going to have to pay for this. So I'm proposing looking into a resolution allowing the second penny to be freed up. I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable for our citizens if we can have this as a backup, just in case we don't grow, just in case we can't make all the payments, and that we don't come back to the citizens and say, sorry, bad news, got to make the payment, and kick up the cash. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. I think our city has always done a very effective job, had a very effective system and philosophy in place to both keep our rates in line, and they've also had a good vision to protect the citizens in the past and as we've gone forward. One of the charts I'll probably maybe ask a little bit more about as we go ahead of the 2007 cutoff on the one. I'll maybe get a little background on years before that when I'm done here. the system we have in place is really a fantastic system where you have a very low fixed rate. If you've seen the charts and done some studying on the subject, as I'm sure most everybody here has, you'll see that our fixed rate's as low as anywhere in the state. And then you basically pay for what you use. So it's continued to keep our rates affordable, and then you pay as you go. And I think as you've seen for the most part, as we've talked about where your increases might go up a bit here and there, there's some worst case scenarios, there's some, if the past holds to the future, what it probably will be. But I think overall, what we're looking at, and one thing to keep in mind too, we talk about our current bill. And remember, our current bill right now comes in two parts. You've got your water bill and you've got your wastewater bill. There's not going to be any increase in your water bill, and that's half your bill. So this wastewater, and Director Cotter, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but wastewaters, we're talking about the 6,543 increase. But overall, that's half of that when you talk about your complete bill, because you're only having that increase on the wastewater side of it. So again, I think that number's gotten lost where that's going to a total bill, that's half of your bill. Again, we're kind of getting into the minutia of the numbers, but if we're talking 200 maybe here, is it $1, is it $2? I think it's kind of important that we reiterate just where we are on these numbers. I appreciate the work that Director Cotter and his department have done on this, and I just can't imagine what it's like to go through and have to have a thing where it's not easy to balance everything we need and everything we want, and yet you got to keep it affordable and you got to keep everybody happy, but we need it, and if you don't do it, what happens? Then the people come down the road when something happens and go, geez, how did, Anyway, I just appreciate you guys for your vision and what you do. I know that you have it in your vision again and goal. The citizens are at the heart of what you do, and their best interests are in the goals of not only you, but everybody on this council. I think we are all, I know we are all here to do the best for this city. We're all here to make sure our rates don't go crazy, but we also have to do what's right. We have to have some vision. We have to look at this with a balanced hand and go, well, what has the past taught us about how we've done things, and where's it going to lead us in the future? And I'd say that overall we've got a pretty good track record. But I'd keep these numbers in mind where we're at. Keep that in mind on your customer bill, this 654. It's actually less than that on a total bill. I would have one question. I don't know if now is the time to ask it, but this chart of since 2007, we've been 100% increase or whatever. I'm curious that maybe years before that, is there a reason there's a cutoff there? What are we missing there for?
Yes. Now let me give you some perspective, because I do think it's been intense for really since 2007. We've really did an assessment, and those first 4 years required double-digit rate increases so we could start to get the revenues to where they needed to be. So we're investing in the system so we can provide reliable service. I did have our utility billing team just do a cut of what our rates were back in. Went back to 86, and so if you just look at that time period of 86 to 2006, you've got a 20-year period of time, and I just did a quick calculation if you used 5 consumption units. And so if you did, your bill in 1986 would have been $6.70. 20 years later, it would have only been $7.88. So for a 20-year period of time, the delta on a wastewater bill was only $1.18. And so what that normally tells you is, yes, we did enjoy very low, basically flat utilities for 20 years. But what we've learned is that you likely, and I wasn't in that position, we didn't make those decisions, but likely they weren't investing back into the system at the rate that they should have been, and that's what really required the pretty significant catch up in the first 4 years from 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we've been fortunate to bring forward single digit rate increases till now. And then you'll just see with, after we get through 2023, our current models that run out almost 2 decades beyond are really at inflationary rate increases. So I think history is a good perspective. The data that was shown tonight from 2007, we've shown that in previous presentations to give a perspective of what this track record has been. But I think when you look at the life of this utility and will ultimately enjoy this plant for 40 years before significant rehabilitation. It's important to not avoid talking about those first 20 years.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would just wrap it up and say again, thank you for your efforts. I would just say we should always proceed with caution. I get that idea. I mean, we always have to make sure we're doing our due diligence. In my view, I think it has been done. I think we do need this. Appreciate the questions asked, but I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd just like to address the amount of $260 million that's been thrown out there quite frequently. And yes, $260 million is a great deal of money. However, I will point out that this isn't all in one project. We would be, even if we don't do the expansion and the improvements to the existing wastewater treatment plant, which comes in at $160 million. Again, that's $160 million is a large amount of money. $100 million still have to go into the improvement of our existing and expansion of our existing infrastructure system. That is work that has to be done regardless of what we do with the existing plant. That has to be done in order to meet the needs of our citizens. And it has been mentioned previously here by Councilor Sale and one of his constituents that nobody wants raw sewage backed up into their basement. Nobody wants to dump raw sewage into our waterways. So just a little clarification on that if we do nothing with the existing wastewater treatment plant, we're still looking at $100 million in infrastructure improvements. And as I mentioned, we all want to protect the citizens. And Councilor Selberg had mentioned it very well. All of us here, I find it very commendable that Councilor Staley is looking out for this average citizen and for the individuals on fixed incomes. But we are all on this council looking out for the same thing here as well too. None of us want to see those rates go up, because we all have friends and relatives that are paying those rates as well as ourselves. The rate increases of 132%. I'd heard Councilor Staley use that figure in some of the media reports that I've seen here lately. And so I was curious as to how that was arrived at, and also curious, was mine actually that high? And she has stated going back to 2007. So I had the utility rate billing team calculate the Kiley household rate since 2007. And in January of 2007, I was paying $14.11. January of 2018, I'm paying $23.95. Now that's not anywhere close to 132% increase. That's actually just under 70%, which does seem to be very high. I mean, that does sound alarming, but until you think that the previous 20 years, our rates were basically stagnant. And in 2010, we had wastewater failure, or not just wastewater, but sewage system failure, which costs us far more to react and to repair than it would have if we had been proactive and taken care of it beforehand. So again, that amount that mine increased, so 70% sounds like a lot. Well, that's $9.84% increase over an 11-year period of time after the previous 20 years saw basically nothing. We have some of the most affordable rates in the region in terms of our water as well as our wastewater. You can't dispute that, and if anybody would like to, we can have the director put the chart up on the screen. So again, I don't see the 240% rate increases. I'd really like to know how the counselor is coming up with these figures. I've seen her information, but it still doesn't explain to me how those amounts are being are reached. Speculation, yes, I think there is a lot of speculation, especially when I hear $150 to $300 bills. when the director has shown that next year it will be $2.12, considerably less than $150 to $300 a month. I think we as counselors do have a responsibility to look out for all citizens and to deal with this as factually as we possibly can, and to make sure that we are as transparent as we possibly can. Yes, as transparent as we possibly can, because I haven't seen that transparency in some of these figures. Regarding the debt, one of the things that hasn't been mentioned here recently, yes, we are undertaking quite a bit of debt, but we have a system that can be sustainable. It's been proven. It's laid out and designed to be sustainable. And I'd also like to remind individuals that over the period of time that this debt will be retired, or that we are in the process of retiring it, we've got existing debt that we are paying down and retiring. It'd be like you have now paid off your car, and so you have more money to apply towards your house payment. That's the type of situation that the city of Sioux Falls will be in during this time frame. So the second penny, again, I think it's admirable that Councilor Staley wishes to keep the rates low. We all do. The second penny resolution, I've heard that thrown out, but I've never heard, okay, what are we going to cut that the second penny is currently paying for? Do we cut out snow removal? Do we cut out other services that we all expect to see and have and enjoy here in the city of Sioux Falls? So I think this is a well thought out plan, and it certainly is going to have my vote this evening.
Councilor Neitzer. I'll just share a few thoughts. Just as some notes I took. One of the things when you think about it is the last 30 years. History is always a good thing to learn from to predict the future. And I think what you've seen in the last 30 years is the first 20 years, and I'll just use the words benign neglect, or if you don't raise rates, and I hate raising rates. If you don't raise rates, your infrastructure starts to crumble, it deteriorates, and then you end up with something like the sewer collapse, and then you have rate shocks later. You leave it frozen for 20 years, and suddenly then you got to do these 16 and 18% rate increases. So you can kind of stick your head in the sand and kind of ignore it, and then it's going to really come back and hit you later. And I think one of the big things that, being good stewards of the city is we have to figure out how do we take in enough that we can operate. We have a reserve, and we can also make sure that we continually repair the infrastructure. And these rate models are very, very well thought out in that regard. So I would also point out that as much as those big rate increases happened over those years, it's also important to point out that in that 10-year period, there was $155 million of capital, of build-out, of repair and replace. $155 million. There was a lot of infrastructure that was built out, and that was stuff that we had cambered the sewer pipes and everything else, and that had to be replaced. There has been some concern about the city not growing, and I guess I would just throw out that, just kind of calculating it, if we had no growth for 5 years, we would take in about $900,000 less over those 5 years, or about $180,000 a year. Now, we got to put that in perspective. The budget in 2018 for the wastewater division is $48 million. So you're talking about an $180,000 difference per year. It's a very, very, very small amount of money. The other thing you have to take into account is that when you look at what they have, the money that they have their reserve, they have enough to make sure they can make the bond payment, and then they have several $1 million in cash as well, because they're cash flowing a lot of projects. So if things are just a little off, and they're going to look at, and they're looking at these all the time, there's always things that come up that you don't expect. If there's something that's a little off, if let's say growth isn't quite what they thought, there's a lot of levers you can pull. All you've got to do is say, you know what, we were going to do this lift station in 2023, we're going to push it to 2024 because the revenues aren't coming in as much. The other thing that's important to point out is that if the population doesn't grow as much, that also means you're going to have less demand on services and less things you're going to have to build. So even though maybe your revenue comes down a little bit, the amount you're going to have to spend to build out and to maintain the system is probably going to come down with it. But they've got that slack in there where they can make that change if they need to. It was also pointed out that the debt, there's a lot of different bond payments that are coming off the books in the next 5 or 6 years, and that's why they're kind of feathering in, where they're not borrowing $260 in the first year. They're going to take a little bit and a little bit as they're doing the project, and then they can kind of ramp up as those other ones are coming down, and that helps to smooth out the rate, and then you don't have such a huge shock. I mean, if they took $260 in 1 year, you might have to do 10% in the first year. So the other thing I do want to point out is, as far as the second penny, and I've thought about this a long time over the years, because I've thought too, as I sat on the outside of this, thinking, you know, I wonder, maybe moving it some to the second penny would be nice, because it is tough on people with these rate increases. But the more that I've continued to look at it, the more that I've realized that the way that the model works, not only does it encourage conservation, but the other thing is that it makes sure that I pay the true cost of it. The more that I would shift to the second penny, the more it's going to start to skew it, where what I use isn't going to necessarily match what I'm paying for. And so some of the giant customers, like the little old lady might start having to pay more than what she's actually using, and she's starting to subsidize a huge industrial customer, or the Walmarts of the world, or whoever it is. So that's where it really makes sense. And the other thing too is that then I feel what I'm using, and so I have the maximum reason to conserve. The more I start shifting it out of there and I don't see it in a bill, the more I'd be more tempted to just take a longer shower or do some of those things that are discretionary, where I can do things where I can, obviously I have to flush, but there's a lot of things that you can do as far as watering the lawn longer and things like that. So it kind of keeps that cost true. The other thing I do want to point out about the second penny is, the reason we did it on the parking ramp was because we went to the public market and we were bonding. And to get a better interest rate, we had to pledge the second penny. And we had to make that judgment. Was it worth basically co-signing the second penny to be our collateral to save the ratepayers in the parking division $1 million or whatever it would end up being, and kind of trying to make that balance. In this particular case, we're going to the state and we're going to take an SRF loan for 2.5% or whatever it is right now. The state isn't going to give us a better interest rate if we quote unquote pledge the second penny. It's going to be 2.5%, and that's what it is. So there's no necessarily point in quote unquote co-signing the second penny. The last thing I will point out is that let's all be completely honest here. We all are here to protect the city. We make sure the rate structure is what it is, so that it is a very strong utility, so that it would take basically an apocalypse where we would ever not be able to make a payment. But in the real world, I don't care what division it is, what fund it is, if it's a parking ramp or whatever else, if it ever came to the point where there was a calamity and we seriously were not going to be able to make a payment in one of these enterprises, I'm going after the second penny. We're taking money out and we're making that bond payment. We are not going to default in the city on a bond payment. It's not going to happen. We're not going to destroy our credit rating or whatever else. And then since it's an enterprise, they're going to have to pay every penny back. So we don't even have to say that it's quote unquote we're doing it. So it would happen anyway, but again, that is why you make sure you thoughtfully do these rates and make sure that you have enough of a pad, which if you look at it, there's several $1 million in this particular enterprise that they're using to cash flow projects, and they're looking at this all the time. You can always make tweaks. So we'll be fine. It's well thought out. And again, even if the city doesn't grow, which would basically defy decades of historical precedent, you know, I can't guarantee the sun will come up tomorrow, but based on historical information I have a pretty good idea it's going to. So I can't make you guarantees, but there's a lot of things for which I can say, based on the evidence I have in history, this is probably going to work. So I would finish with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Neitzer. Councilor Staley.
Well, Councilor Kiley, I have some bad news. The charts that I showed were created by our own budget analyst, Dave Bixler. Dave Bixler came up with those numbers. He is our employee. So you've questioned what he did. He did that for me. So if we got a problem with these, we got a problem with an employee. I didn't do this myself. Let me also say, with the second penny, I'm glad that Councilor Neisert has said that down the road, if we run into the problems, he's willing to use the second penny then. I personally would rather we don't just wait until Councilor Neisert thinks it's time to utilize that. I don't know why we can't do it now. And I will tell our city attorney, because the resolution is in the attorney's hands right now, this was done with the parking ramp. So it's something that we can consider. I'm not saying we'd have to use it, but I think it's something that we could use. But back to the figures, Councilor Kiley, Dave Bixler came up with those.
Councilor Kiley.
First of all, Counselor, don't ever think that I am challenging the worthiness of one of our employees. I have never done that. Counselor, I have the floor.
Councilor Kiley has the floor.
I did not do that. I have not done that. I do question the data and how you're using it. I can only point to the factual information based on my own experience with my own water bill, that it's very different from what the information that you presented this evening. So I support all of our employees, council employees, as well as the staff employees of the city. So please do not ever put words in my mouth when it comes to our city employees.
And if I may,
Councilor Sale, you have the floor.
Councilor Staley, I guess I would appreciate if you would, prior to showing these things to the public and to us for the first time, if you could distribute them to us prior to the meetings and identify the source of your information, it could make things go a little smoother.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley.
and let me say, sometimes we can do that, sometimes I may not be able to do that. Oh, that's not a mandate for me to do research. Councilor, yes, but Dave Bixler came up with the cumulative, the 100, the 200, and I thank him for his work. I said, Dave, can you look at what our historical rate increases were, and would you see what the total percentage was? And that he came up with 132%. Then today I said, say, Dave, a citizen asked about the compounded rate, and I said, could you do that? He came up with that for me this afternoon, 248%. So maybe I should have his name at the bottom of it, so you know I'm not doing the math in my head. But Dave did it. And I say, he's not here right now, or else I'd have him come up and take credit for this, but I think he did a fine job.
Councilors, is there other discussion on this item? We have a motion on the floor to set a date of hearing and second reading, and a second on that. Councilor Brecky.
Well, but for the last few moments, I was really enjoying the very respectful discussion, amongst the council. This is a really important issue, and I appreciate how studious everybody has and serious everybody has taken it. And in fact, I'm just kind of drinking it all in and trying to understand it. It's one of the largest decisions in the history of the city, and I call that a deep breath moment. And I think that, the public can clearly see that we're taking a deep breath, and we're looking at it all very seriously. I look forward to the discussion about the resolution, that Teresa is going to be bringing on the 2% issue. I think that is a legitimate discussion to have as part of all of this, and I'm glad we're having it. I don't know where I'm going to fall on it, but I do know that all I really have to contribute at this moment is a little bit of history, which I think is interesting. Going back to what you just saw and what you just described, happening with those sewer rates, it starts with the second penny, and it starts with Loila Hunking under the 5-member commission going down the street with a megaphone saying, "I will fix your streets. I will fix your streets." Streets were the campaign issue of the day. And she got elected. And she got that second penny passed. And it had a specific designation attached to it for streets only. A few years later, the streets were fixed. Loila was gone. Bob Jamison came in, and the streets were in pretty darn good shape. Then Commissioner Gary Hansen came on board, and he unseated Commissioner Peterson. Again, back in the commission form of government, the 5 commission, they were siloed up. no commissioner knew what the other commissioner was doing. I mean, they literally kind of had their own islands. And when Gary got in there, he found exactly what Greg just described. There had been no rate increases, there had been no planning, there had been no visioning, and he had a mess. And he's going, I need some money. And so he managed to convince his other commissioners to change that second penny and add sewers. So then we added sewers, and now, you know, the streets were in pretty good shape. We needed to fix the sewers. So then you know, he is one of the people that you have been, and deservedly so, giving credit to, those visionary people of the past, because not only was he looking out for the sewers, but he was also looking for our water supply. And he was, you know, really the key, the city of Sioux Falls was the key stakeholder, organizer of the Lewis and Clark project. So in his term, both as commissioner and then eventually as mayor, you know, you saw a lot of vision and planning and energy put into righting the ship, you know, because that what always remained his passion, you know, in both water reclamation, you know, and in water purification, you know, in our drinking water standards. So part of why I'm interested in having the discussion about the second penny is because, again, that's what it used to be for. And then, you know, after that, at some point, the state law actually changed. And the state said you can use it for whatever you want. And so the city, you know, I think it was like in 2007. So the city then, you know, opened it up so that you can use it for whatever you want. The question is whether that's really good or whether that's not so good. And so I do think it's going to be interesting to discuss it because it is truly a policy decision that the council should be taking a look at. Was that a wise decision to do? Should there be a policy, you know, in the city about how we use that second penny? Should we be pledging it as collateral for all these things, or should it be turned back to focusing on those really routine, fundamental infrastructure needs that we have? And so I think that's going to be an interesting part of the discussion. I see it as a legitimate, you know, policy debate and something that we may want to continue to look at after we, you know, make this decision of the day on this issue. So I contribute that, and I look forward to the debate at second reading, and I appreciate everyone's comments and studiousness tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Neitzer.
One other comment. I guess it's not entirely clear, and I'm happy to wait and see what the resolution looks like, but really it could be there's really a couple of things that could be just using it as collateral in the case that there is an issue, and it sounds like that might be what it is. And then the other, you know, because we're kind of intermingling almost two different things, which is should you use the second penny to pay for sewer infrastructure, which is one debate, versus should you use it as collateral. And I guess I'd have opinions on both, and I guess so it'll be interesting to see what they're said. The only thing I would throw on, I don't think it's on the table. It doesn't sound like this is what is going to get proposed, but you know, the idea of possibly starting to, if you were to think that maybe we should use the second penny, besides the fact of the nexus issue of you know, users paying for what they use. The biggest thing that I would have to challenge and I would struggle with is if you wanted to make an appreciable difference in rates, if you wanted to just theoretically start moving back to the second penny, you're not talking about hundreds of thousands, you're talking about millions of dollars a year that you would have to take out of the second penny. And so my simple challenge would be I would really want to know what would be proposed to cut. Like, if, for example, if you're going to move 10 million back, what exactly you're going to cut. And really, we have some big boys in there, and it's things that citizens have come to expect. Right or wrong, maybe that isn't why the second penny was originally created, but it's roads, it's libraries, it's parks, it's fire stations. Those are really the brunt of what's in there. And so somebody would have to tell me, what road are we not going to replace? What potholes are we no longer going to fill? What parks are we not going to build? Because something would have to give, and it would be a pretty tough adjustment if you wanted to start shifting back that way. So that, you know, it sounds simple, but there's only a finite amount of money, and something would have to give. So it's just one of those, you know, if you want to have no rate increases, you're going to have to give something else up, and then we would have to be very honest with people about that. So,
Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The thing I'm hearing tonight is we're operating without a strategic plan for the entire city and an overall vision of where we're going. I think Mr. Stanga made a good point when he addressed us earlier when he said, you first made choices about, as another friend calls it, playthings first, rather than taking an overall look at what we're doing as a city and where we're heading forward. By making this decision, yes, it's part of this enterprise fund, the users pay for it, so we're able to make that work in our mind that it takes care of it. But in the overall, how does that affect how we're going to provide police protection and fire protection for our citizens and the major investments that we're going to have to make in a short amount of time? How do we move forward with other priorities for our parks? And as we expand with Emerald Ash Borer affecting our city, but where do we put new swimming pools? Where do we put new park amenities? How does that fit in the overall picture of what we're doing? We're making a very large decision about probably the biggest project or purchase that we've made as a city in a silo, in an enterprise fund, without taking a look at the overall condition of the city, of where we're headed. We make this work for this enterprise fund, but we're not necessarily looking at the overall picture. And one of the things, and I give Councilor Brecky a lot of credit for this, is that we have to have a plan for our city moving forward. We can't continue to operate taking care of the reactionary project of the moment. The other thing that I wanted to point out tonight is that we do this as government, and it really is disillusioning to our citizens because we move forward with things, we work internally with these projects, and the citizens don't know about them. We spend years talking about an administration building internally, but then we come to first reading and we plop it on the citizens, and it's the first time for many of them to hear it because we've planned and we've done this ourselves, and we spend hours here, and our staff spends a lot of time talking about these issues. But somehow we have to share earlier with the public so they understand. And I think that goes back to what I was talking earlier about a strategic planning and understanding where that's coming from. Because if there isn't buy-in from our citizens, that's what people get upset about, is when they don't feel their government hears them. And I think this is another one of those times that all they see is the price tag, and we've kind of plopped it on them for the first time when they see it on the headline of the news tonight, that we're talking about spending $260 million after the school board spending $190 on new schools that are needed in our community. But we're also talking about, fire and police, and we've done other things. And we get so focused on a project to get things done that we don't look at the big picture of what we're doing. And I've enjoyed this conversation tonight. I enjoyed Director Cotter bringing this to us last week as part of the at our informational meeting and having a chance to get our heads wrapped around of where we're headed. But somehow we've got to include the public long before we get to this point, because that's when feelings get hurt. That's when things get heated. And this is one of those times, again, where we're moving forward with something where we've known about it or we've started the discussion internally, but we don't share it with the public as early in the process as we should.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Steele?
Well, in my closing, I'm going to say again, I was on the front page of the paper today with the mayor, saying that somehow I violated the public's trust because I'm scrutinizing the worst case scenario, $300 a month. Is it $250? Is it $200? Is it $100? But I was misquoted by saying that we will be paying $300 a month. And I didn't say that. And so I want to, just to give the context of this, Jim, if you come up, I just would like to for the public, since I have been, the mayor referenced 2 different occasions when I spoke about this. I want the citizens to understand I care about them, as I know we all do. I've been talking about these rates. I want it, just for the record, to say what I actually said for the public to hear. Thank you, Jim. So these are the questions I need to have answered. Maybe they will be, maybe they won't be, but I feel that at the end of the day, 10 years from now, if we haven't grown the way we think we're going to, and then we come back to the citizens and say, we got to pay this thing off. We got a $12 million payment a year. Sorry, we're going to up your bill to $300 a month. I have to have a clear conscience that I'm going to be able to say, didn't go along with this. I mean, the numbers have to etch out. we have to etch it out. And we have to look at the worst case scenario, in my opinion. So it's the biggest expenditure that I can recall in our city. I thought the event center was the biggest one. This is turning out to be the biggest one. So these are things that we talked about. I'm hoping to get some really great answers that can just satisfy my concerns and that of the citizens.
Thank you.
And there's one more, excuse me. This is going to be the biggest expenditure we've ever had in our community. $260 million.
Sioux Falls' current wastewater plant has been operating on the city's north side for the last 30 years. But as Sioux Falls grows, so does the amount of wastewater being treated. And this plant is now nearing its capacity.
We'll essentially be out of capacity around that 2025 timeframe. Our proposed plan is to now expand the plant from 21 million gallons a day up to 30.
Public Works Director Mark Cotter tells me a 5-year, $260 million expansion plan would solve the problem.
In general, we're going to invest about $100 million into the city infrastructure, the collection system, if you will. So about $100 million will go into the collection system, about $160 million will go into the treatment plant.
I'm concerned that we're going to have debt. We're going to have $260 million of debt that will have to be paid back. And the only source of payment right now they're proposing is on our water and sewer bill.
Cotter says the average customer uses just under 5,000 gallons every month. If the expansion is approved, starting next year, they could see their sewer bill jump from $32 a month to a little more than $34.
It is, in most cases, out of sight, out of mind. People take a shower, they flush their toilet, they wash dishes, and they discharge that out of their house or their businesses. Everybody just expects it to work.
Councilwoman Teresa Staley is watching the money, worried residents will end up paying a hefty bill for growth she says may not happen.
As our city has grown, I know that our needs for wastewater capacity are growing as well. If those people don't come to town and put this heavy burden on our sewer users, then I think we're going to be in trouble with the average citizen. I do not want to see our sewer bills rise to $300 a month.
Thank you, Jim. Councilors, there is a motion on the floor. There's further discussion from Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. And the point that I was trying to make before, the councilor just did it again with the reference of $300 a month. No, you didn't say it was going to be $300 a month, but you certainly mentioned $300 a month and giving that impression. And even if we used the data that you presented this evening that showed a 132% increase, your $300 a month is over 750% increase over your own data. I just don't find that responsible information.
Councilors, I'm going to ask for a vote on this item.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
No.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that item passes 6-1. Item 29.
A resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Local 519 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Bill O'Toole, Human Resources Director. I'm pleased to be in front of you to request your support for a 2-year labor agreement with our AFSCME employees. Just some background information. AFSCME represents about 507 city employees, which is about 108 respective positions through the City of Sioux Falls. Now, how did we get here? I would tell you we had 2 meetings in September and we had 2 meetings in October for purposes of discussing wages, hours, and conditions of employment. And during that time, we were able to reach an agreement. And shortly after that, they held a membership vote in which they overwhelmingly approved the terms that we negotiated. And here tonight as well is Cooper Caraway, who's the Council 65 South Dakota representative for AFSCME, and Tim Donovan, who is the local president of AFSCME. I'd like to thank them for setting a very good tone and environment for these negotiations. It's the reason it was so successful and why we're able to get it done in such a short period of time. I'd also remind the council, I was here about 2 weeks ago, where we also wrapped up the labor agreement with the firefighters, and they also had an overwhelming majority of their members approve their contract. So I'm pleased to report the same as it relates to the AFSCME group as well. And again, I'll do what I did with the last agreement, and we'll talk a little bit about the economic conditions. The non-economic conditions are probably operationally based. There's information out on the website for you and for the public as it relates to that. And if you have questions about that, we'd be happy to take those questions, whether it's from me or members from AFSCME as well. But from an economic perspective, I would advise you that, again, a 2-year agreement, the cost of living adjustment for 2019 was 2.5%. The 2020 COLA was 3%. We also negotiated a 50% per hour shift differential for shift workers in our water reclamation and water purification plant, where you got a 24/7 operation. We also enhanced the tool allowance within this contract, increased it from $500 to $600, and also the tool insurance. And if the council remembers, we did a compensation and benefit study last year, or actually this year. The results of that came out. We also negotiated some changes because there were about 7 positions that were identified as being below market, and we made those adjustments and negotiated those terms within this agreement as well. And again, the rest of the non-economics are kind of operationally based. And unless you have any specific questions, I would ask your support for this. We're very happy with the way these negotiations went. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, questions for Bill on this? Councilor Starr.
Yes, Mr. O'Toole, I know you mentioned the fire department and now we're approving AFSCME tonight. Where are we at with the police agreement? Are we close to the end of the year is running? I know the contract expires at the end of December. Will we have that wrapped up by then, or where are we at in the process?
What I can tell you, Councilor, is that we are still in the process of negotiations. I won't try to predict when, but we're still in the process.
Other questions for Bill on the AFSCME contract? Councilor Neitzer.
I'm not sure if I heard you right. Just out of curiosity, did you say tool allowance?
Yes, for like mechanics, vehicle equipment service technicians. What ends up happening is they bring their own tools. That's industry practices. They bring their own tools to the work environment, and we then give them an allowance that covers breakage, replacement of tools.
So they get that much annually to repair and purchase new tools? Is that more or less it?
Yes. Yeah, what they do is they submit receipts, they have the discussion with their supervisors and show them the need, and that is provided.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thanks.
Councilors, I'd look for a motion to approve item 29.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Sale. Is there further discussion, Council? A vote on this, please.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Cooper and Tim, thanks for being here and your leadership on AFSCME. Appreciate it. Next item, item 30.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Liz Wheeler to the Board of Health, Nick Kapperman to the Building Board of Appeals and Examiners, and James Keller, Nicholas Thompson, and Dr. Bruce Voigt to the Falls Community Health Center Governing Board.
Anyone from the public here to speak on these, or any of those folks here by chance? Councilors, can I ask for a motion on this?
Move approval.
Second.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Sale. A vote on this item, please.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Councilors, is there a motion to adjourn or any new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Move to adjourn. Kiley, seconded by Sale. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. Have a great night, everybody.